Hello YouTube Pipers, Double O Pipe here, aka Rick. I wanted to show you what I got from, heck, I can't even remember where I ordered it from now, but it came in the other day, and it was my Norman Rockwell pipe. It's a Stanwell. Came in this little pouch. I was a bit disappointed, but here's what we got. I thought it would be longer than that, and I thought the bowl would be a little bigger than that, but we got what we got. I put a rubber bit on the end already, and I got 3 pouches, one of half and half, Sir Walter Raleigh, and velvet. They were all on sale for about $4.50, I think it was. So I went ahead and ordered those 3 because I really wanted the pipe because it looked good in the catalog, but now that I have it in my hand, I was surprised at, but you know, it'll be good for small smokes, as some of you have told me about other pipes, so we'll go with that. Now I got from Tramper Scott, I got some samples here. One is a Samuel Gawith Kindle Cream. It's like little ropes. I like the smell of that. And Gawith Hogarth Brown Flake Aromatic. It's like little flat tobaccos. I like the smell of that too. And some Made in the USA Carter Hall. Now I have to admit, Scott, that this is the first thing I tried. And I don't know what to say about it. It seemed a bit raw or something because it hit my throat. Unlike the Carter Hall that I have here, which is really smooth to me, this was a touch rough. And you said it was the product of when it was made in the USA, and this was a while back, so I reckon if you were smoking it back then, it would have been different. Or to me it would have been, because that's all I would have had. But this, I don't know what they've done to it that's different, but it, for me, is a much milder smoke. So I'm gonna put Carter Hall in this brand new Stanwell Norman Rockwell pipe and see how it smokes. I didn't see, too small for a filter, so no filter on this. So bits of tobacco will be coming, I'm sure. Okay. I'm just dropping it in, trying not to poke my finger down there like I have been doing. Trying just to let the pad of my finger put a bit of pressure on it. And I think that's about all it's going to take, and I'll put my thumb into it. Of course, the pad of my thumb is bigger than the hole here, so, but we'll go with that. Got a nice easy draw to it. Okay. Put this back over there. Now what did I do with my lighter? I made a pot of tea, but somehow I didn't get the full saturation of those leaves. So I have what my dad would have called gnats, which is the same consistency or color as what gnat's piss would be, which means it's very weak. And I don't like it that weak, but it is what I got. Alrighty. I'm trying to understand or trying to make out the difference in taste of tobacco in a different pipe. I think one of my problems is that I only smoke a bowl about once every 3 days now, so you can't really get any kind of a taste or memory taste from that. So I put myself at a disadvantage. That bowl's already heating up. I don't get that with the others. It's a very lightweight pipe. The stem is probably too small for this particular rubber tip. Now see, with a retro hail like that, I tried that with the American-made Carter Hall that Scott sent me. And I don't know whether it singed the hairs of my nose or just burned the membrane, but it just wasn't that mild coming through the nostrils. So I don't know what they do to this now, but it makes, I find it more pleasant than the roughness of that. So I guess I'm a sissy. And I can't take a manly smoke. I don't know. Okay. Let me try this story. With apologies to Charles Dickens. Being an old codger, I fall asleep when I sit down. Anywhere. In front of the TV. Anywhere. Here, in front of this thing, I'm out like a light after about 10 minutes. Well, sitting down reading a Christmas story or a Christmas carol, fell asleep. And in that sleep, I had a dream. As I nodded off, I was awakened by a touch on my shoulder. And I looked up and I said, "Who are you and how did you get in here?" He said, "I'm the spirit of Christmas." I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" He said, "I have something to show you." And I said, "I've seen that movie so many times. You show me Christmas past, you show me Christmas present, you show me Christmas future. And there I am in front of my tombstone, slamming my knees into the ground, saying, 'Please don't let it be true. Please.'" I said, "I don't want to go through all that." He said, "Schmuck, that's not it. That's not it at all." I said, "Well, which spirit of Christmas are you?" And he said, "The only spirit of Christmas." I said, "Okay, I don't understand that." He said, "You don't have to. You just need to touch my jacket." I said, "And what is that going to do?" He said, "Just grab hold of the jacket." So I did. Instantly, like that. We were in a small cobbled street. To us, it would be an alley, but this was bordered by houses made of dried mud with windows cut into the mud walls and oil lamps giving light to the street. Now, this was obviously way back because there was no electricity, no gas. And the sky above, you could see the stars, which I find I can't do out here anymore. And I said, "What's going on? I don't know this place." He said, "Be quiet and watch." And we heard the clop, clop, clop of a mule coming down the street. And a female voice said, "Joseph, hurry. I'm having pains. Please, you've got to find us a place." He said, I'm trying. And he ran over to a door and knocked. Rap, rap, rap. And the door opened up. And he said, "Please, I've got to have a room. My wife is having a baby." Slam. The door slammed in his face with the echo from behind it of someone saying, "We got no rooms here." She said, "Please, Joseph, please, I can't bear it much more." And he said, "I'm trying." Knock, knock, knock across the street. Somebody came to the door and he said, "I've got to have a room. My wife's having a..." And the man said, "You should have thought of that before coming to this town. I got no rooms." Slam. And Mary again said, "Joseph, please." And he said, "I'm trying. Let me alone. I'm trying." Went up to another door and rapped on the door. Man came to it and he said, "Please, I've got to have a room. My wife's having a baby. She's in labor." And he said, "I'm sorry, we're just full up. There's no place here." And he started to close the door, and behind him he heard his wife say, "What's up? Who is that?" And he said, "Somebody says his wife's having a baby." And she says, "Let me see." So she pushes him out of the way and comes out and says, "Oh my gosh, this girl can't be more than 14, and she's having a baby?" She looked at Joseph and she said, "Men." Said, that girl's only 14 and you've already shoved life up into her? You should be ashamed. She says, get this mule back to the back. There's a shelter back there for the animals. You can stay in there, but get this child off of this donkey and put her into a soft bit of hay so she can get some relief. Riding a donkey like that? You should be ashamed of yourself. Men, she said again, and ran into the house. And Joseph quickly took the donkey around and helped her off and took her into the shelter of the barn and found a haystack and fluffed the hay up and put her on it. And she began to cry out again in pain. And the lady from the house came running out, had a blanket, and the husband came with her. And she told the husband, tell our daughter to get out here. I need some help. Tell her to bring some water and some more blankets. So the husband said, okay. And he ran into the house, told his daughter, and his daughter came running out with blankets and water. And the husband came out and had a goat skin full of wine. And the wife said, that's good. I'm glad you brought that out. Take that wine and take that man out of here. We don't need him in here. So the owner of the house walked out and said, follow me. He said, you don't want to be around her when she's like that. He said, here, have a pull on this wine. And Joseph said, okay, that looks and sounds good. So he did. He had a pull on the wineskin, held it up, streamed the wine down into his mouth like they did back in those days. Had 2 or 3 pulls on it. And the man could see his eyes were getting glassy. He said, you're not used to drink, are you? And he said, no, I'm not, but I need it. He said, how long have you been married? And he said, I've been married for quite some time. He said, you got children? He said, yeah, I have 4. The youngest is in there helping my wife with your wife. He said, this is my first. Let me hold that bag of wine again. And he took another drink of the wine, and it's beginning to loosen up. And he said, you think you got troubles? And the man said, we all have troubles. Nobody gets through this life without troubles. He said, well, I got troubles. He said, that baby's not mine. And the man said, well, I think you better give me back that wine, because I don't think this is something you should be talking to me about. And he said, yeah, and you want to know who the father is? He said, I don't think that's any of my business. He said, let me tell you, my wife, when she found out that her aunt was going to have a baby, and her aunt was 70 years old, it's a little strange that she'd be having a baby at that age, but she was going to have a baby. So Mary went to visit her. And after the baby was born, she came back and informed me that she was pregnant. And then she told me, you want to hear this? And the man said, I guess you're going to tell me. She said the father of the child was God. said, "Can you believe that?" And the man said, "Well, I've heard a lot of things in the world." He said, "And after she told me that night I had a dream. And in that dream, what's really strange is in that dream, we were right here in this place. I was talking to you, and the baby is born. The baby is wrapped in swaddling clothes and laid in a manger. And shepherds visited because they had seen angels in the sky as a choir singing of the birth of the Messiah. And that birth of the Messiah was here in your stable. And just at that moment, there was a cry from the stable. The sound of a baby giving his first yell into the world. And so the man said, "I'll go and see what's happening." And he ran in and he looked down at the child, and the child had almost a glow about it as he looked at it. And he couldn't help himself. He just felt a warmth inside, and he smiled, and the child looked up at him, even though it was a newborn, looked up at him and raised his hand and smiled. And it just took this man by surprise. And he said to his wife, "The baby's all right? Is the mother okay?" And she said, "Yes, both fine. Can you not see what a fine, lovely child this is?" He said, "Yeah, I'll go tell the father." She said, "Yeah, I think you should." So as he ran out, he ran into shepherds. He didn't like shepherds because they were ragged and dirty, and they stayed with sheep all day, and they smelled of sheep. But there were a whole group of ragtag shepherds just coming towards the barn, bumping into him as if they were in a trance. And he ran out to where Joseph was, and he said, "Your baby, it's a beautiful boy." And Joseph said, "There are shepherds out there, aren't there?" He said, "How did you know that?" "I told you. I dreamed this." "You want to know something else?" And the man said, "You mean there's more?" He said, "Oh yeah, there's more." He said, "Whenever we walk through there, we're going to see the shepherds just as if they're worshiping my son." Oh. He said, "Well, not my son, but God's son, as Mary has told me." But as we're walking toward the front, there are going to be 3 men, well dressed in rich clothes, bearing gifts, riding camels. And he said, Are you nuts?" And he said, "No, I'm not nuts." And next, you're going to see right above the stable a star, the brightest star you've ever seen in your life, with a shaft of light coming down, hitting the stable, enveloping it in glorious light. And these men are going to get off of their camels. Their slaves are going to grab the gifts they have, and they're going to come and tell us that they're 3 kings from the Orient who've come to worship the Messiah. He said, "That's one dream." He said, "Oh yeah, that's a dream, all right." And they walk up round to the front where they're going to go into the stable. And as they get to the doorway, 3 camels walk up, the men dressed in rich attire, dismount the camels, their slaves, hand them the gifts, and they 3 of them walk into the stable as Joseph and the owner of the house bear witness to this, and lay the gifts in front of the child: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And they stay worshiping for some time. And they're all crowded around the manger: the shepherds and the 3 wise men, the slaves, and the animals in the stalls. Look at the new people who have just walked in, and then they all put their gaze back on the child in the manger, who's looking around at everybody and smiling, each one individually, holding his hand up as if recognizing every one of them. Excuse me. And after a bit of time, the 3 men, the 3 wise men, get up and return to their camels and argue about what's the best way to leave. And they decide to go in the opposite direction from the one they came, to get back home, because they had a very uneasy feeling about going back to report to the king that they had found the child. Because they had reason to believe that this man had ill intentions towards that child. They climbed onto their camels and off they went. The shepherds got up, praising God, and went back to the hills where their sheep were. Joseph walked up to the manger, looked down at the child that smiled up at him. And Mary says, "Won't you hold your son?" And he looked at her with that, "You know that's not my son because you told me it wasn't." But reached down and picked it up, cradled it in his arms. And the glow of the smile on this child's face and his reaching up and touching Joseph's face, Joseph knew that Mary was right and that he would be the best father for this child that he could. And he looked down at his wife and he smiled and said, "This is our child. We'll raise him the best we can." And like that, slumped over this book that I was reading, I woke up and I thought, boy, that was a weird dream. And as I began to come fully awake, I noticed in my shoes, took my shoe off and poured out a load of sand. And I thought to myself, where did this sand come from? And I heard back in back of my head, "Schmuck." It was a voice I recognized. Oh, geez. I'm sorry. I just felt like that added something to it. But that's the Christmas story. That's the real reason we celebrate Christmas. The birth of the Lord Jesus, the Messiahs of the Jews, and one day they'll accept it. There are many Jews who are accepting this as the days go on. And many think that we're seeing evidence of the end of times now. I don't know. Many times people have said the end of times are coming. There are many ages where they have said that and thought that and believed that. I don't know. Even Jesus didn't know. Only God knows. That's his decision. I have to say the world has become more wicked than anything it was ever like when I was young. I never would have dreamed that things would be as they are today when I was younger and more innocent. So I don't know. But he was born into this world to give us hope, to give us the love that he wanted each of us to share with each other. And we all grow up, and we all age, and we all learn. We all learn at different rates. It's taken me a long time even to begin to understand that message that he brought. And it's true that his message is the only message for this world. And there are so many people in the world now. And so many, even though the message is out there in almost every corner of the world, and yet there are so many that just don't understand that message. I don't understand so much, but I do know that Jesus walked this earth. He had a message that was the only truth that we need to know, and the only truth that can make this world what it was originally, a Garden of Eden. So Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to everyone. Think about the real meaning of Christmas. The light, the truth, and the hope that came into this world so many years ago. And it's taken us this long so many years without understanding that message. Think about it and pass it on. God bless you all. Take care of yourselves. Have a Merry Christmas. And if I don't get back on here again, have a Happy New Year as well. Bless you. Bye-bye.